Yeah, that's the Arrowverse stuff. I mean, there was a lot more kind of announced, and there's a lot of, like, Supergirl got a new costume, which is a little bit more like what they're doing in the comics right now, where she doesn't have a skirt. I mean, not that she's naked, but she has pants.
Yeah.
They showed new costumes for everybody on Arrow. Everybody has noticed that Spartan, which is John Diggle's character, played by David Ramsey, his costume, if you look at it right, it has like green trim, and it's like this looks kind of like a Green Lantern costume, which, like, because there's been this thing, like, among the fans, which I always thought was a little bit racist, but because he's black and his name's John and he used to be in the military, people are like, oh, that's John Stewart from the Green Lantern comics. It's like, no, his name's not John. Good enough. He's John.
Yeah, he's got
black.
the first name. It's not like it's a generic name for people or anything.
But because so many fans wanted it, they essentially set it up in Elseworlds. Like, when the Flash of Earth 90 shows up, he sees Diggle and he goes, John, why aren't you wearing your ring? And so I'm assuming we'll see some, special effects wise, it cost a fortune to make a Green Lantern. I imagine what we'll see is, like, we'll see some version on some Earth of John Diggle where his, like, eyes just turn green and, like, there's just a flash of green light and that's all you see.
Yeah.
And first of all, that'll mean that they don't have to pay for special effects, and second of all, that'll mean there's plausible deniability if the Arrowverse people are like, nope, that's not going to interfere with the Green Lantern movie. But anyway, so, like, there's a lot of little things, but really the Crisis stuff is what everybody was talking about, and that's, like, the thing that dominated most of the Warner Brothers television stuff that wasn't, like, Supernatural and Riverdale. Supernatural is ending, which, spoilers. Have you seen, by the way, what the end of season 14 was? Because it's bananas.
No.
I know you don't watch regularly. I don't actually watch super regularly, but I do watch enough of it for work because I talk to the cast all the time because I'm Warner Brothers television guy. So there's this character, Chuck, who was introduced like season 4 or something. He's only appeared periodically, but what we discovered over time is he's God.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they've been able to turn to him when they needed, like, a Deus Ex Machina. Most of the time he's just, like, kind of watching stuff. And what they revealed at the end of season 14 is that essentially, he's been watching stuff in a very literal way.
Yeah.
He, like, Supernatural's his favorite show. And so a lot of the stuff that's been, like, all the terrible things that have happened to these people in the last 14 years, it's basically because he was like, oh, that'd be an interesting story.
Wait, so what was that? What was the TV show where they wake up from a dream and it was the hotel?
Oh, St. Elsewhere, right?
Maybe did they do that too? It was damn it.
I think St. Elsewhere. No, St. Elsewhere was the one where the snow globe. Shoot, I know what you're talking about. I can picture the act, but the guy who comes out of the shower and the whole thing was a dream.
Yeah.
Yes, except that no, because in universe, Supernatural still happened. It's just that God was messing with them the whole time.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing: like, there was I can't remember what it was, but that, like, God gave him a gun that could kill anything, basically.
Heart to heart? No.
Newhart was the one. Newhart was the. Oh, okay. Yeah. I was thinking the one with the guy in the shower.
This is very important, but yes.
I was thinking the one where the guy came out of the shower because, like, he had died the previous season, and then, like, you found out the whole last season was a dream.
Yeah. Okay.
Or, Roseanne, where you found out the whole last season was a book that she wrote to deal with her husband's death, which then turns out he didn't really die.
Yeah, because
now she's dead, but he's not.
She's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway.
But yeah. So in Supernatural's final season, the bad guy's God. This is a spoiler. Like, at the end of season 14, he wanted somebody killed, and he gave him this gun that could kill anything, and but it was a, like, because it's a TV show to him and because this is entertainment for him, it was, you can kill anything with this, but when you pull the trigger, you die too. You sacrifice yourself to, and ultimately what ends up happening is that one of the two brothers, who's the heart of the show, figures out that God's not really the good guy here and tries to kill God with it. And so it, like, does a hard cut to black, and you're like, oh shit, they just destroy the universe for the end of the season?
That's just the ending of Sopranos. Anyway.
Yeah.
Wait, is that why Sopranos cut to black?
There you go. But so then basically it comes back, and God's like, no, fuck you, and brings about a zombie apocalypse. That's the end of season 14, is that God has abandoned them, everything's going wrong, there's a zombie apocalypse, and that's when they cut to black for real.
Yeah.
And so the 15th and final season is going to be like hell on earth, and they're trying to fight God. Like, and it's funny because it kind of reminds me of Preacher, because like the big revelation over the course of the series was that God was not God day to day. Like, the boys always thought that they were the only thing saving the world because God was like essentially on vacation.
Yeah.
And like that's still kind of sort of true, I guess, from the perspective of them narratively. But it's more than just like, hey, he's on vacation and we have to make him take responsibility for him, which is the premise of Preacher.
Yeah.
It's more like, you know, he's been messing with you personally, actively this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so like talking about the last season, talking about all that kind of stuff, and like obviously because Supernatural's been running since Jesus was born, it's a big deal. You know, it's the longest running sci-fi show or horror show, whatever you want to, like, it's the longest running genre show of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ending this season, and everybody was very teary-eyed about it and everything. They gave away one of the cars, like the Black Impala.
Oh, wow.
Because they have like 5 of them for the show, obviously.
Yeah.
And now that they're like shooting the final season, they basically just figured out a way, how can we do this without one of the cars?
Yeah.
And they gave it away to like somebody at the panel.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah,
that's in my experience, Supernatural is one of the few fan bases that are good people.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, there are a handful of crazy people in that fandom, but by and large, they are some of the nicest people.
Yeah, yeah.
And the cast is that way too. It's actually, I want to cover that show more. I've been saying for years I want to cover the show more. The problem is, again, my personal like crazy OCD thing of like, no, I need to know, I need to watch it from the beginning so I know everything. And it's like, since I didn't start covering it until like season 11, I was like, oh, that's a lot. But so like, but it's, and again, every fandom does have some elements that are crazy, but like the Supernatural like family, which is what they call themselves, by and large are really good people. They do a lot of charity work. They've
had to save their show about 14 times.
Yeah, right.
I feel like that the show literally never ended. It was like the fight to like save Supernatural.
I mean, it did end for a while, but it's funny because what happened was, you know, Supernatural was it's the last remaining show from the WB before the CW was a thing.
Survived it.
Yeah, it survived that. And so at the time it was like it was always on the cusp of cancellation, and they were like, gotta save the show. And then like Netflix and everything happened, and TV ratings started to plummet. And Supernatural has basically just always stayed the same. Mm-hmm. And so, just by not losing its audience, and again, this is entirely because the fans are awesome.
Yeah.
But like, just by not losing its audience, suddenly Supernatural looks really good.
Yeah.
Because like everybody else is plummeting, and it's like, no, now you're like the highest or second highest rated show on the network.
Yeah.
By virtue of like attrition.
Virtue of the rest of the world following around.
Yeah. Because Supernatural is immune to the heat death of the universe.
Yeah.
And so it's this hilarious thing where the reason that they had to stop, like, they didn't have to stop, but the reason they stopped having to campaign to save their show is because TV died around Supernatural, and Supernatural just kind of stood there watching.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, to me, it's fucking fascinating.
It's like that and The Simpsons are like the two shows that like, at The Simpsons though will survive the zombie apocalypse. There'll still be Korean animators like producing it long after the world ends around everything.
Especially now that they're owned by Disney. Like, I feel like when it was Fox and it was like their homegrown thing. Like, you know, there used to be the thing every couple of years where you have a fight with the cast.
Yeah,
and like maybe the show won't come
they're
back.
each making like $42 million an episode, and
and nobody wants to take a pay cut, but then the network doesn't want to give them a raise because they're making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, like I feel like what's going to happen is that sooner or later Disney's just going to recast the whole fucking thing because they're Disney and they don't care. Like they didn't make it, they don't care. It's the only credible argument I've seen for why Avatar won't come back out in theaters and beat Avengers again now that Avengers has finally beaten it. Is people who are just like, but they're a lot more proud of making the Avengers than they are of buying Avatar. And I'm like, actually, somebody at work with me pointed out that like if they attach it to, instead of like doing a reissue to get people caught up, if they do a double feature thing, then they can count all that money towards the box office of Avatar 2. And so Avatar makes a bunch of money, doesn't overtake Endgame, and gives a cushion to the Avatar 2 box office, which I think is guaranteed to be disappointing. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation, but so Supernatural was a big thing. They didn't really tell you a lot because there's not a lot to tell. All these shows, at least the CW shows, have started shooting like last week or this week. I went to the Nancy Drew panel. I didn't actually get to their press.
That's not Who's in it? It's not girl from It. That's a different thing, right?
Yeah, there's a feature film that went to direct
okay,
TV.
yeah.
And that one's a much more traditional Nancy Drew. It's
Yeah.
like aimed towards a younger audience.
Yeah.
Sophia Lillis is the one from it, the redhead.
Yeah.
But Kennedy McMahon is in this one. It's basically Riverdale too. That's not entirely fair. It feels to me more like Veronica Mars than Riverdale.
Yeah.
But because it's on the CW and because of like some of the plot elements they use, like the whole season is going to center around this mystery where it's like one of your main characters, well, not one of your, all of your main characters are the suspects.
Yeah.
Like what happens is Nancy Drew is working at a diner. There's like this mob guy who is in, I mean, they don't say he's a mob guy, but he's a mob guy.
Yeah.
Like he's a rich dude who owns a bunch of businesses, but the guys with him are like goons.
Yeah. Is there a drive-in movie theater that they're trying to build condos on? I mean,
I don't think yet.
And some maple syrup.
Very, very possible.
I mean, it would be super fun that it's like the next town over.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a fun crossover.
Yeah.
But in this one, basically, what happens is like, dude's there, his wife is out in the car, and like he's like, "Hey, my wife's waiting for us outside. Can you bring her something to eat?"
Mm-hmm.
So Nancy goes and brings her food. And then, like, 10 minutes later, there's a power outage, and when Nancy goes to check on the wife, she's been murdered. And so, like, there's one dude who was, like, serving food to the mob guys.
Yeah.
But, like, every other person in the restaurant has no alibi because the power went out and there's no security cameras.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, Nancy is the prime suspect because she went outside and, like, her fingerprints are on this lady's plate.
Yeah.
And, like, she was the one who found the body and blah, blah, blah. But so like that's the setup for the thing, and there's definitely like more supernatural elements to this than there are in Riverdale. Like in Riverdale, it's like the Scooby-Doo thing, where it's like there's the creepy Gargoyle King, but then you find out no, the creepy Gargoyle King is just a douchebag in a costume inspired by a role-playing game.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Nancy Drew, as far as I can tell, and also as far as the showrunners have said, it's like legit ghost stories involved. The whole thing centers around this like years-old murder where the rumor is that this like teenage girl who got murdered, her ghost haunts the city. And like the pilot ends with Nancy, and this is not really a spoiler because it's in the trailer for the show. But if you don't want to be spoiled on the last 30 seconds of the episode, like go forward 2 minutes. But yeah, the pilot ends with Nancy going up to her attic and finding out that her parents have been hiding this bloodstained dress of the girl who got murdered in a trunk for years.
Yeah.
And then, like, as she pulls it out to examine it, the ghost of the girl appears behind her.
Ah.
And that's, like, cut to black.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty good pilot. It's not great.
Didn't they find a bloodstained dress along the riverside in Riverdale? Wasn't that, like, what...
Maybe there was a bloodstained dress at some... I mean, the murder victim...
Or they found the jacket. I'm trying to remember. Anyway. Well, I'm just trying to find more direct line comparisons.
Well, I mean, one thing that I can say is that in Riverdale, they found the corpse in the... Like, he washed up in the river at the end of the pilot.
Yeah.
In Nancy Drew, they never found the body.
Oh, it was the jacket they found in the trailer.
Yeah,
okay, that's what I was trying to think of.
But even that wasn't really bloodstained. It was just proof that one person had the murder victim's belongings.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There was that. but in this one, there's no body, but the girl is presumed to have fallen over a waterfall. And so it's like maybe it's like her body's gonna pop up in Riverdale, but
they're downstream. It's like it's like The Simpsons, where Springfield and who is Shelbyville? Yeah. Which, by the way, that's the show I actually would love to see like one season of. It's like anyway, but yeah.
But yeah, the Nancy Drew pilot, from what I saw, like it. I mean, not from what I saw the pilot.
Yeah.
It was solid. It wasn't great. I'm intrigued enough to watch some more, especially because like having grown up in the '80s, I read a lot of Hardy Boys, and like I have some degree of emotional attachment to those properties. Not a lot, but some.
Yeah.
They do, as far as I know, they're still planning on making more of those direct-to-DVD movies with Lillis, assuming that the second It movie doesn't make her too expensive to do it.
Yeah.
But it's very much like how they're doing a Critters TV show for Shudder and a Critters direct-to-DVD movie series for Warner Brothers Home Entertainment.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think they're like, as long as we're speaking to different audiences, it doesn't really matter that there's, Which again is something that's been pioneered by DC.
Yeah.
Like, you have the movies, you have the cartoons, you have the TV shows, and they've managed to make it work, and I think that's given Warner Brothers confidence that, like, no, this is a thing we can do.
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars did it for years and
Yeah,
years
exactly.
and years. Like kind of everything is
the comics and the
is
books.
A little bit,
blah,
maybe
blah.
it's canon, maybe it's not, until we decide it's not because
it was
doesn't
all
fit some
actually it was
things.
all ostensibly. I mean, except
Yeah.
for the cartoons, like the droids and Ewoks cartoons. I
Yeah.
don't think were ever canon. But like, yeah, all those books and comics and stuff were all ostensibly canon up until the Disney acquisition, when they were just like, no, we're making new movies, all that shit, forget it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did the Nancy Drew thing. And like I said, it's a good enough show. It's not nearly as stylish as Riverdale, but I mean, kind of what is. Like, that's Riverdale's thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how it kind of all shakes out. But I like the cast a lot. There's this girl, I can't remember her name for the life of me, Leah Lewis, I think, but she plays George, who is like the manager of the restaurant. I haven't read Nancy Drew books ever. I read Hardy Boys as a kid. I'm assuming George used to be like a main character who existed. Because like a lot of the characters in the show are like they are versions of characters who did exist in the Nancy Drew books, even though they basically are in name only.
Yeah.
But so there's this girl called George. She's the manager. She doesn't particularly like Nancy. But she's got a really snarky like wit about her.
Yeah.
In the trailer, there's a shot where the sheriff says something like, Nancy Drew, and like the out-of-town person goes, why do you say her name like that? And the sheriff goes, she used to make my job a lot harder. And George's response is, you mean do it for you? And I'm just like, oh, so you're Veronica Mars, I see. Because that's like literally an exchange that happened in the first season of Veronica Mars, like, word for word. But it's a weird choice because like George got that line instead of Nancy.
Yeah.
So it's like you're establishing that Nancy isn't Veronica, that like this random person she works with is. So that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And then Riverdale. I'm just directing us through the rest of the Warner Brothers television, so we don't have to backtrack.
Yeah.
But then Riverdale. Riverdale is a weird. It was a weird press room because obviously the thing that's looming over Riverdale is the passing of Luke Perry.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw. First of all, the first episode is going to be a tribute to Luke Perry / this is how we are saying goodbye to Fred, which is his character on the show. He passed away. They were almost done with production, but not done last year, and so basically, you just didn't see him. There was a passing line of dialogue where he was out of town on business or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what business. He owns a construction company that, as far as I can tell, only seems to do business in Riverdale.
Yeah.
I think what's going to end up happening is that you're going to find out that he had a girlfriend that he was going to see secretly.
Yeah.
And she's the one who found the body. And the reason I think this is because they've given you zero details about who she plays, but they did cast Shannon Doherty to play a small but emotionally significant role or something like that in the Luke Perry episode.
Yeah.
And apparently Luke and Shannon stayed friends after 90210, and he'd been trying to get her on Riverdale since the beginning, and it just never it was never the right fit. They wanted her to come and do I heard through the grapevine, so I shouldn't probably say exactly who, because I don't want to be a source for somebody to be like, oh no, that actor didn't, But they wanted her to come and do another specific role that was a recurring role, and she didn't think that she was going to be able to do multiple episodes, and so.
Which now a 90210 reboot is happening?
It is, and Fred was supposed to be in it.
Yeah.
Shannon wasn't supposed to be in it, although I think that now that he passed away, she's doing it, and I suspect it's going to be basically the same thing. Because I think that they ended up together at the end of I could be wrong, I never watched it. But my understanding is I think those two ended up together at the end of the show.
I was more of a Melrose Place person.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, not really.
I actually, funny enough, I'd seen the 90210 on CW, the reboot from a few years ago. Only one or two of them, but just because it was on after Arrow or something.
Yeah.
And Luke Perry was in that at least once, but so Doherty, I think, is probably going to end up doing the same thing in the 90210 thing. She didn't want to do it, or I don't know if she didn't want to do it, but she hadn't signed till after Perry passed away, and then I heard that she'd signed, and so probably she's going to be there to be the voice of that family, because they ended up together, and we all miss Luke, and it's a bummer, stepping into the shoes of somebody, I cover this show, it's hard to overstate how much the people on the set of Riverdale loved Luke Perry, and this isn't a thing that came out after he died and everybody said no, on set, the first season before an episode had aired, everybody talked about how Luke was the emotional core of the show, and how he was the guy who he was a father figure to all these kids and blah blah blah. And if you asked him, he would always downplay it. He'd be like, no, I got nothing to teach them. they're all great, and like if they come to me with a question, I'll answer it, but I'm not going to try to tell them how to do stuff.
Yeah.
But every kid on the show was like, yeah, that's true, except that I come to him 3 times a week.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so like it's going to be a really hard episode for them, and it's actually like it's going to be a standalone thing, which for Riverdale is crazy because Riverdale is basically a soap opera.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a standalone episode, so that way they don't have to like they didn't want to do like this heartfelt tribute to this guy they loved, and then spend the last 30 seconds being like, oh, and in a year Jughead's going to be naked, you know, because. Which also, by the way, spoilers, this weird thing. So last season ended, and it was like Archie, Betty, and Veronica in their underwear around a fire, like they've just burned their clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And like Jughead's not there, and Betty has his beanie, and Archie's like, all the evidence has to go. You have to burn the hat, basically. And so everybody has taken that to be like they're implying that Jughead dies.
Yeah.
Which again is kind of like the death of Superman thing. You're like, no, he doesn't.
Yeah.
But like, but you can still imply it. You can have some.
There's just going to be a storyline that he died, that he's dead for.
Right, or at least
episodes.
there's a story where they're teasing that for the first half of the season, and then once you find out that he didn't, but something else happened, then they're paying it off. Yeah, that wasn't the intent at all. Apparently, the scene was written with all 4 of them, and Cole didn't want to be in his underwear in the middle of the night in Vancouver, which. Can't blame him. That's not technically the entire truth. I spoke to 3 different people who gave me 3 different versions of the same story.
Nice.
I talked to KJ Appa, and he said Cole was in that scene. He didn't want to be cold in the middle of the night in Vancouver, so he wasn't in it. And now, like, people think he's dead because. And then I talked to Cole Sprouse, and he's like, "That's not true." He's like, "This is not the kind of show where they rewrite stuff because somebody's whining they're cold."
Yeah.
And he didn't really give any other details except for like, that's silly.
Yeah.
So then I talked to the showrunner, Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa, and I basically said, here's what the boys say. What the hell's going on with that scene? And he said he originally wanted to do exactly what they did. He wanted to tease that Jughead was going to die.
Yeah.
But he's not, obviously. And so he wanted to tease Jughead was going to die, and so he wrote it without Jughead, but also they all had clothes.
Yeah.
They were just out there, and it was like burning something that was evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And the network and the studio basically wrote to him, and they said, look, we know what you're trying to do, it's clever and all, but no, Cole, we want him in the scene.
Yeah.
So they put Jughead back in. And then the night of, the guy who was directing the episode was like, what if the evidence they're burning is their clothes, and they're all standing in their underwear in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
And it was a striking visual, not so much because like this is a cast full of beautiful people, so seeing them in their underwear is great, which is true, but because...
And still will never stop being awkward every time we do. It's like, oh, okay, yes, hi, how you doing? Anyway, especially considering they're also, like, speaking of, like, the nicest people in the world.
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
they remember me behind the camera. Like, it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like, them and the Black Lightning crew, like...
Yeah. Absolutely.
I will never say a bad word about either show, not that I have had any bad words to say, but, like, just because, like, holy shit. Anyway.
So what was I saying? So the way this all kind of came together is that they decided, but it wasn't just like that. Like it's cool to see them in their underwear; they're all hot.
Yeah.
It's that at the beginning of the season, the first scene with all of them, they were in a swimming hole, and so now it's like you're standing like at the end of the season, you're standing next to the river burning, and so it's like they're all in there. Like it's a mirroring thing.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really clever like bit of filmmaking if you think about it that way, which I never had. Yeah. But so. The Roberto was like, yes, I love it, let's do it, let's go. And that's when Cole was like, I don't really want to be in my underwear in the middle of the night in Vancouver.
Yep.
And so the director called Roberto, and he's like, do we put clothes back on them? And he's like, no, you know what? If Cole doesn't want to be in the scene, he shouldn't have to be in the scene. And so they basically got what they wanted.
Yeah.
And when the network came and complained, they were like, no, it's all Cole, he didn't want to be in the scene. And so it was like this
use a little bit of that star power with him. Yeah,
exactly. Because like that's why they wanted him in the shot, was because like he's cold.
Yeah.
So it was this great thing of like, no, we got what we wanted in this weird sideways fashion, and it also makes me wonder if maybe that was if that was all calculated. Like everything that I've been told is slightly less true, and that really what they were like is what if we change something small and then Cole ejects and we can...
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any truth to that, but that would, like, my first inkling was like, that all fell together really nicely. I wonder if it was on purpose.
Yeah.